Okay, so this clip here is 2019. 2019. This clip here is 2022. And this is me, 2026. So back in 2021, let's call that the invisible phase. 2022 is the self-assured phase. And now I'd say I'm naturally confident, easily confident. And I'll take you through, I'll explain the layers of growth and evolution I went through to get from that invisible stage in 2019 to how I feel now, being naturally confident, unshakable self-belief, all the things we all want, right? And so back in 2019, in this clip, the reason I filmed this clip was I remember watching YouTube, and this was my first attempt at YouTube, right? And I remember watching YouTube. I remember watching, I think it was Tana Mojo, if anyone else recognizes that name. And I was just blown away by the fact that someone could be so successful by just being themselves. Like, I thought that was amazing. I thought that was so cool. And at that time, I was so ashamed to be myself. I felt, when I say invisible, it was literally like I was struggling to date. I just felt like no one noticed me, no one saw me, no one cared. That it was, I kind of had old friends, but it was difficult to make new friends. Even I worked really hard, and it was essentially like, even when I went out, I would be so afraid of like being in a photo. I would hide from photos. I'd make sure there'd be like no photo evidence of me, mostly for the fact that I was so afraid to see the photo, and I was so afraid to see the photo that like, and see myself as, just in case like I was mortified, because every now and then I would see a photo of myself and I was mortified, because as you can see in this clip, I'll let it play.
Cool. So just while I'm putting this smoothie together, I thought I would just give you a background. I used to...
I'm actually quite, let's call it inflamed, for lack of a better definition. And no, I'll just say what it is. I was not a comfortable weight for me personally. And at that point in time, you know, I'd do the classic like walk around, head down, hair hiding my face, like shoulders hunched. And even if I made an effort, I'd be so afraid that I looked like I was trying too hard and it didn't suit me. So then I'd like hide more whenever I felt even slightly, mildly like not ugly, because at that point in time, I honestly was convinced that no one liked me because I was ugly. I was somehow failing at life because I was ugly. And I just had this overwhelming shame, but I didn't even know it was shame at the time. It was just like wanting to hide, wanting to be invisible. And so I was invisible. And so at that point in time, all I knew, like I didn't know the things I know today. I didn't know, which I'll get more into, like the nervous system and the subconscious and identity. And I definitely did not have any of the tools I have today, like hypnosis and breath work. But all I knew is at that point in time, that was my mid-20s, so my early 30s now. And all I knew is that I didn't have much energy. I was quite lethargic. I was quite fatigued. I was trying to figure out if it was my hormones, if it was my iron, if it was like all these things. I would go to the doctor, and of course the doctor's like, no, you're fine. Like you're within the levels. Because with the medical system, of course, it's like outside these lines is everyone that's sick, and inside this line is like society average. But if you're basing your average against an unhealthy society, then it's like you feel like there's something wrong, you know there's something wrong, but there's no doctor will tell you what it is or can identify it or like pinpoint something so that they can't make it right. And at that point in time, it was a very like keto phase. I think that's when like keto took off, and all those diets, and I was just like prepared to do anything. I'm like, I'm just going to experiment with different diets. So I essentially started, and like I think that was like the uptick of like when gut health and all that got a bit more popular and mainstream. And so people were, there was all sorts of diet, there was all sorts of information. I just used to listen to podcasts like back to back and read and research so much diet information. So I was like convinced, I'm like, okay, maybe it's my diet. Maybe this is why I'm so lethargic. And I just feel just like flat the whole time. And so I started the keto diet. I experimented with that and that was good. And then I essentially got increasingly more extreme, because at first I was like, I actually feel like I'm benefiting here. And then it got to the point where I ended up doing the carnivore diet. Initially, I started like cooked meat. And then I ended up eating raw carnivore diet. For 6 months, I only ate raw eggs, raw cheese. I say raw cheese. In Australia, it's really hard to get raw cheese. I think in Europe, I think literally everywhere else in the world, it's basically unpasteurized cheese that's made from unpasteurized milk, which is kind of illegal in Australia. So I was like basically buying high quality cheese of like under the counter. Luckily I had like a farmer's market nearby. So I got raw egg, raw cheese, raw steak for lunch. Like I diced it up like steak tartare, and then raw fish for dinner. And every now and then, like alfalfa sprouts that I grew. So that was my diet literally for 6 months. And I'll be honest, it actually kind of helped. Like, I'm not going to go into the details, the benefits, the pros and cons to it. And I definitely couldn't do it again. But at that point in time, I was just like so ready to try anything, because like my digestion was whack, my energy was whack. And then at that point in time as well, like I'd actually been doing parkour, and like, yes, literally like the parkour where you jump over things and jump up walls. I'd been training for that, and I realized that I wasn't strong enough. And it's so funny. So many people go to the gym, right? Or so many women go to the gym to work on their booty and work on their abs and all these things. And I remember talking to one of the personal instructors there. And he's like, what do you want to work at? I was like, I really want to do a chin up. He's like, okay. Interesting, but yes, we can work on some calisthenics. So I went from basically this clip in 2019, realizing that like somewhat mortified by this video of myself, like the way I looked, the whole thing. Did these extreme diets, did the carnivore diet, started doing calisthenics. Essentially, what happened, why I don't necessarily endorse the raw carnivore diet, even though I did it and even though I have benefited from it. Essentially, it got to the point one day where, I don't know, I just decided to eat some cake. And you have to understand, like, for years, I had not been able to eat anything, like any cake or any ice cream, without like it upsetting my stomach and making me feel bloated and like I just want to curl up in bed all day. And so whatever that diet did to resolve my digestion, essentially could eat cake. And so I literally just, the craving for cake and ice cream was so intense that for a few months, I literally just ate cake and ice cream every single day, and I fully just blew out. So kind of like rewound everything I'd been trying to do for my appearance. And so at that point, I was like, okay, we're going to do it sustainably. And so I sorted out my digestion, which will make sense in a second. So it was like basic bodily function was like the first layer of improvement that I focused on, because what happened then is by researching all the gut stuff, it led me to the fitness piece. And then over time, I kind of moved, I'd been doing calisthenics, and then I realized I wanted to be a firefighter. So I started training for firefighting. So I essentially went from the carnivore diet and calisthenics to doing essentially kind of like strongman activities at the gym, like dragging sleds, carrying sandbags, like the whole thing. Again, at the gym, everyone's just like, what is this girl doing? But I got so fit. Like it was having the desire to pass the firefighting physical, which I knew when I had made that decision that I was no way fit enough to do. And so essentially I trained for like 12 to 18 months to actually get my fitness up. Like I was just not fit at all. And so I really had that purpose, I suppose, that motivated me to sort out my physical fitness. And what was interesting, what happened from that is I started to not hate myself so much, right? Like I started to actually see improvements in my physical health and actually move away from the belief that I was just like big boned or destined to be chubby or, all this belief that I had going on, and realizing that actually I'd never trained I'd never really lifted weights. I'd never done much cardio. I actually don't really like running. I much prefer weightlifting, but that really showed me that I could change, and by like focused effort. And so did the gut, so like basic bodily function, sorted out my fitness. So we got here to now like physical fitness. I started getting that in order. And that also gave me confidence in a way, like, oh, I can actually do more. Like I can lift weights. I can do things with my body. Like I have more potential. I'm not just this like fragile, vulnerable person that needs to be invisible. And that's when I started to really come out of my shell a bit more, because I started to look in the mirror and think like, okay, cool. Like this isn't so bad. Looking in the mirror isn't suddenly gonna overwhelm me with self-hatred and bodily shame. And so got the fitness sorted out, and now we're at about 2021. So essentially 21, I fail the firefighting test. So after all of that, I actually still failed the physical, but like so close. I was so close. I timed out with 30 seconds to go and one lap left, and I just like, my body overheated. Like it overheated so much that they put me in one of those ice chairs with the ice, where like, anyway, it's in the ice and then the water is icy that you put on your arms. And it took about 10 minutes until I could feel the cold. Like I sat there, like heat exhaustion. There's a person across from me who I don't really notice until like 10 minutes later. And I suddenly go, oh, it's actually quite cold. He was like, yeah. So anyway, I failed that, and I'll fast forward to the point where then I met my boyfriend a few months later, and I also got a job offer a few months later, which essentially brings us to 2022, where at this point I have just started to look into like personal development. I started to do a bit more journaling, like hypnosis type meditations. And so what I went from is, like the physical level. And now at this point, I'm starting to get into like like working with my emotions and how I talk to people and the social side. And at each layer, I've had an identity shift as well. When I started working out for firefighting, I started perceiving myself as someone who is fit, who does work out. And as a result, I started to embody that identity. And then towards 2022, towards this point where I'm starting to feel so much self-assured. I mean, look at the difference. Look at me in 2022. At this point, I've still got anxiety. I've still got insecurities. I still think I'm like awkward and socially like just not there. But I'm starting to work on that. I'm starting to really notice like how I interact with my partner, how I've actually been pushing people away with how I treat them because of my insecurities, because I've been constantly trying to protect myself as opposed to seeking connection. I've been in this like kind of like subconsciously doing this thing where I'm pushing people away or just like, I don't know, just like fearful or stressed, or it's this whole thing. Now what I know it was essentially my nervous system was perpetually in fight or flight, that my nervous system didn't actually know what safety felt like. And I actually had to retrain my nervous system to understand what safety and regulated felt like. And I realized that a lot of my communications and socializing and even dating situations, I was in a dysregulated state. And getting myself into a regulated state meant it was so much easier to socialize. Like I stopped getting so anxious. And so around 2022 is when I started doing the work that I do now, which is the nervous system work, the processing unresolved stress. And finally, I'm also like getting rid of emotional baggage at this point. Like I realized prior to meeting my boyfriend how much emotional baggage I had that I was literally bringing to every date. Like anytime I was so bad. Because as soon as I started getting my like confidence up, stopped wanting to be so invisible, I started going on dates. But now the problem was that now that I was going on dates, I was bringing all my emotional baggage with me. Like, you know, hey, here's me and all my emotions. And it's so embarrassing. Like, I would get so attached. Like, they're like, I have given you no hint that I like you. And I'm like, I need to feel loved. And luckily I started sorting that out a bit before I met my now partner. But then having met him, it also gave me space and a bit of validation to really, and I guess like motivation to figure it out more, like actually, you know, figure this out, figure the emotional overwhelm out, figure this insecurity out. And so, yeah, I started doing the work I do now and processing those emotions, getting to understand like different feelings, what different feelings felt like. And one of the biggest things was actually like resolving shame, because it's almost like shame is like this wet blanket that keeps all the other emotions in, because we have shame about expressing emotions or feeling emotions or processing emotions. So when you remove the wet blanket of shame, it's really easy to start processing things and stop holding onto them and bottling them up until they like burst when, you know, someone doesn't text you back, which is just embarrassing. It was so me. And so by working on the emotional level, my emotional internal world, it really opened me up to a romantic relationship. But then it also I noticed how much it cleared my mind. Like, it's actually insane. I remember going to work, I had a break and I did quite an intensive, few weeks of this inner work. And I went back to work and I remember doing a job that used to make me anxious and just doing it and getting to the end of the day, not only having more energy, but realizing that I hadn't been anxious at all. Like I just did what I needed to do without overthinking it, without questioning if I was going to fail, without second guessing myself, without doubting. And so at this point, I'm like fairly self-assured enough that I'm like, okay, maybe I could start my own business. Maybe I could actually do this. Maybe I could actually start talking to camera, right? Like I tried to do YouTube back in 2019, was like mortified by the result of my filming. Tried again in 2022, but this time I had the confidence and the awareness that even though I wasn't good then, actually, I'll play you what I said in that moment. So I'm back. And I mean, I am filming this in the hope that it turns out well, but if it doesn't, then this is just a practice run. So And I also don't know how anyone talks for extended periods of time, because, yeah, it stays engaging. I'm like exhausted already. Right, and so right now, I've been talking easily for around 20 minutes. Then I was just like, how does anyone speak to camera? But I knew that I could, at that point in time, I didn't make my cringiness and my inability to easily communicate on camera about my self-worth. Like, this was the point where I stopped making my failures or like not, skilled enough about my self-worth, where previously if I didn't do something well, it was like this minefield of not good enough, like self-worth, you shouldn't be doing this anyway, you're an embarrassment, to in 2022 finally being able to be awkward and cringe and just being like, okay, well, I just need to practice, and having that self-assurance that I will improve over time. And I'm like bad at something, not because I'm not worthy of it or not because I don't deserve to be good. It's literally like I just need to practice. And so this is like, I've done like a big chunk of internal work at this point, like cleared so much of my repressed emotions, started processing them and getting familiar with them. And so anytime I had a meltdown, I didn't then like guilt and shame myself. Like, I just let myself feel the emotions. So many times at work after that, I would just if something happened that really triggered me, I'd get in my car and have a little tantrum, and then I'd be fine again. And it wasn't like this big deal that then I told myself stories about or overthought. Like, I didn't go to sleep thinking about it a million times, running the scenario through my head. I did every now and then, but less so. I was able to process and get myself back into a regulated state. And so in this like emotional, working through my emotions, working through my mindset, then evolved into money. So I started to work on my financial health, because at this point now I'm feeling, safe in my body, safe in my mind, safe in my relationships. And I noticed my financial behavior was still a bit of a mess. Like, I was earning the most I'd ever earned, and I was still living paycheck to paycheck. And so when people say you just need to earn more, like you just need to out-earn your spending, it's like, well, actually, I mean, yes, that is a good strategy, but you also need to sort out your financial health, because you can very much just keep spending as much as you're earning. Because yeah, what was happening then is like I was earning as much as I was spending as much as I was earning. But by sorting out my financial health, by changing my mindset around money, but also changing my actual relationship to money, like seeing money as a partner. Like, how do I talk to money? How do I feel about myself when I'm around money? How do I, treat money? This was insane to actually shift my behavior around money, because as opposed to like treating it like it would come in and then it's like, okay, get to work. Like, money comes in and get to work, go be fun, take me on these dates, buy me these things, pay these bills, right? I actually took a moment to be like, okay, like, hi money, like, welcome back. So good to see you. Like, what are we going to do? What's the plan now? And I was able to really budget and invest, and I've earned very little in the last 8 months, and I've essentially just been living off my savings that I created over time because of my financial health. And so, I've done the physical, I've improved in the physical area, shifted my identity there, started to see myself as someone healthy, someone fit, started to shift and improve in the areas of my romantic life, my social life, my emotions. I start to see myself not as someone that's really bad at being single, but is actually really great at being in a relationship, and is, not socially awkward anymore, but socially confident, socially comfortable. And then I'm like, we're moving up the ladder, right? We're moving up the pyramid. Now I'm starting to see myself as someone that is great with money, that is wealthy, that can strategize and plan. And because of that, I start to get into the mindset of like, okay, well, business mastery, and that's where I am now, is essentially went from self-assured in 2022, started working on my finances, then started developing my skills in business, started practicing speaking to camera. And so the journey from invisible to self-assured was really working on those inner basic layers. So the subconscious, the physical, the body, the mind, and the identity, which is what I take all my clients through, because it is so important to have that foundational inner work. And then that self-assured to naturally confident was then moving into the external actions, the finances, the mastery, the purpose, the vision, which then brought me to like naturally confident. And of course, along the way from self-assured to naturally confident, I still did layers of nervous system work and identity work, because at each growth stage, I had to expand my nervous system, which essentially means expand your comfort zone, by learning to regulate my nervous system more in scarier, uncertain, riskier, higher responsibility situations. And by doing that in those higher responsibility situations, it reinforced my confidence in myself, because there was like, if something happened that was a bit wild, but I handled it really well, then it reinforced that I can actually handle anything, right? And then that reinforces the identity that I can actually handle anything, which then further reinforces the seeing myself as being able to create a business, to go after my purpose, to have mastery, to be good at things, to manage large amounts of money, to be worthy of friendships and opportunities and all that. And so whether you feel invisible, self-assured, but maybe still a bit anxious or insecure, or even naturally confident, I work with people to, learn to regulate their nervous system, to clear any of the unprocessed stress, to really assess where their identity is leading them and redirect it to where they actually want to go. And the thing is, like, I know it took, that whole story for me has taken 7 years, but if you give me 3 months, like, you will feel more like yourself than you have in so long. You will stop reacting to things, you'll start responding to things, you'll start to essentially observe your behaviors in a way and not be scared of your own emotions, because yes, things will come up, but that's kind of the point, to clear out all that emotional baggage. And it's not like trying something on, like, oh, try on this sisterhood wounding. Are you sure? Does it still fit? Have you outgrown it? It's like, no, this box here says sisterhood wounding. Are you done with it? It's like, yes, okay. This box here says shame from ex-boyfriend who didn't let you or judged you for being yourself. Are you done with this? Yes, okay. And what about this box here? This is dysfunctional parenting that overreacted. It's like, oh, it's okay. Take out the happy memories. Chuck out the rest. And when I say give me 3 months, I don't mean watching my YouTubes for 3 months, circling, waiting for a sign. I mean doing the heavy lifting and clearing out the emotional baggage so that your nervous system feels safe and regulated, just like as a baseline, because then that allows your natural confidence to be your natural state, even in situations that are new, even in networking situations, as opposed to just like going and hiding in the corner or only talking to the people that you know. You can walk into a room and almost just like the fact that people notice you, as opposed to wanting to hide from it. You don't mind being seen. And what was also amazing, which I kind of love, but it's, I don't know, some people would just be like, no, is I stopped criticizing myself for saying the wrong thing. You stop really getting in your head around saying the wrong thing. And what's really interesting, the amount of times I've said the wrong thing, whether it's literally like something really dumb or just like the wrong thing to a person, they've reacted the wrong way, because you have this perception of being someone that can handle anything. You just navigate that, or you just shake it off, or because you don't even care. Most people don't care either. And it's actually so freeing to be regulated and naturally confident because you have so much mental space. You're not constantly overthinking social reactions, interactions, or social reactions for that matter, or wondering if you are good enough to be in a relationship. Instead, you actually have discernment and self-respect and self-worth for how people also interact with you. You don't then just absorb someone else's rudeness. Like if someone's rude to you and you're like, oh, maybe that was my fault. It's like, no. No, it's not. Let's like sort out that self-worth, sort out that discernment so that you have clear boundaries in a way we don't even need to set them because you have standards. And you have so much more space mentally and emotionally for the things you want to do and the things you enjoy because your subconscious fears or like old programming aren't exhausting you, because that's the thing. It's like we started with me talking about how I used to feel fatigued and lethargic. And the thing is, it wasn't until I resolved my emotional and the mental world where I really felt like a massive increase in energy because I resolved a lot of that unprocessed stress. And I remember doing like quite a big process that I take my clients through, and the clarity of mind and the amount of creativity that it was like I cleared a fog and I just like opened up my mind and my thoughts became so coherent and so clear, and I just have natural energy. Whenever my nervous system is in a regulated state, I have so much energy, even if I don't get a lot of sleep. Like I know that I've like got myself a bit burnt out or got my nervous system a bit dysregulated or just like done too much for too long when I feel really like attached to my sleep. Like I really need a good sleep. Otherwise, I'm going to be in a terrible mood for the rest of the day. When I've let my nervous system heal, when I've done hypnosis, so my thoughts, my mindset are in line with what I'm trying to do and who I'm trying to become, I just have so much natural energy. Like it's just, honestly, this stuff is amazing. And as soon as you do it, you're going to kick yourself for not doing it sooner. So please just check out the description, have a look at the links. I've either got my one-to-one work, which is quite bespoke and custom. So we figure out what's best for you. Or I also have my community Happy High Status Society, exactly how it sounds. So it's about being emotionally regulated, but also leaders of our lives. So I hope to see you inside one of those, and thank you so much.